So what are you doing today?
Oh, not literally today, just in general.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, I'm here doing this. I'm Farida Amar, and this is my LA year one. When I arrived in LA, I was heartbroken. I had just gone through a really significant breakup in Boston, and I left everything. I think I had $300 and a rabbit. My rabbit came with me. And that's it. Like, I left my house, my dog, and all my friends, and my relationship and everything. And I ended up moving in with a friend who was my best friend at the time and sleeping on his couch. And he was also going through a breakup. And he was also heartbroken. So it was two heartbroken people together in a loft in downtown LA. Then his dog ate my rabbit. So then that was gone too. I didn't even know if I was gonna stay. I think I just went to get out of Boston, and because my friend also needed me, and it felt like a good place to be sad. So, and then also my family's from California. So I thought if everything doesn't work, then I can always just go home and figure it out. But within 6 months, I got my own loft across the street from his on Spring Street. And I brought an art collective that I was running called Unraveled Artists into LA and transferred everything, all the business licenses and everything. And then I decided that I wanted to do a music festival. So I contacted the downtown LA Art Walk people, and I told them that I wanted to do a music festival during the Art Walk, and with the art collective, and they said no. They said it's not possible. They would want to do it, but they can't do it because there is a legal ban on music in downtown LA that's kind of left over from before it had been redeveloped, and when there used to be like curfews in downtown. So I went to the city and I inquired about it, and they told me that there was a ban on live music. It was technically always going to be considered busking or something without a permit. So I fought them and lifted the ban on live music. That took a long time, like almost the whole year. And they removed the ban, and then they permitted our festival. And then we did, I think it was like 12 live music shows at the same time in different locations during the Art Walk 1 month. And it was really successful, surprisingly successful, probably because no one had been able to do that because there was a ban. So people really liked it and responded well to it. And we did really cool things with local businesses, where one of them was like, I remember the Kurt Darling Salon. I don't know if they're still down there, but we did a rock show in a hair salon. We did a local clothing store. And we did like a kind of unexpected small business spaces, because we also wanted to promote the businesses that were like independently owned, which seems like now there's almost none of those left in downtown. But at the time, it was a place that was like thriving with entrepreneurs and a lot of artists and kind of DIY people and people starting their own companies. So we wanted to be about that. And it went really well. And then after that, I think because of the work that I did with all the permitting and the legal stuff to make that work, I was asked to run for city council. And I said no, but they submitted my name anyway. And then Catherine Brem, who was the executive director of the Art Walk, who was sitting on city council, the division for arts and culture, she left and she put me in her seat. Basically put me in her seat. I still had to be elected, but she ran a whole campaign really without my permission, and then just called me and told me that I was elected. So then that kind of affected the next 2 years. but it was a really wild first year. And I also got into the underground parties in downtown, like the ones in basements and warehouses that were like after hours. And I was working often at this place called Machine Inspired Art, which is on Main Street, like Main and 5th or 4th or something, by that diner, the Nickel Diner. And they had this really super crazy narcissist running the place. And he had huge underground parties in the basement like all the time. So I did that and kind of like coordinated and organized the parties, like found the DJs and produced them. At the end of the year, I rescued my dog, who is a Great Dane, who I still have now. When I first moved to LA, I really didn't even think I would stay. Like originally, the plan wasn't to stay and live in Los Angeles. It was to just like be here to be heartbroken and then get over it and then figure out what I wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do was move to Morocco because I always wanted to live there. And then the other plan was New Orleans because I have a lot of family there and I never actually spent real time there and I had a job offer there already. So I did think LA would be temporary, but I really liked it a lot more than I thought I would. And now that I've been in LA for since 2013, so like 7 years, I still like it, but now I can kind of see that I was like in that downtown LA bubble where you like only know downtown LA because you don't really have a reason to leave downtown when you live there. You just like walk around and everything is there. But even with only downtown as my entire LA experience in year one, I think that it was still very impressionable and very inspiring. And I met a lot of incredible people in a short amount of time that I wasn't ready to say goodbye to. So I just kept staying and then tried living in different parts of the city. And I still discover entire areas of LA that I didn't even know existed. Like a whole city that I just learned about, like Palms. I just learned about Palms the other day. There's a place called Palms that is in like near Culver City, but not Culver City. And it's like an entire city that I didn't know existed. So now I know where that is. And I don't know if I can get bored of LA because it's so diverse and sprawling. And like if I don't like something or if I do feel bored, I just drive for about 15 minutes and then I have a completely different experience. Before moving here, I lived a lot of places. I first left home when I was 12, and then I left the country when I was 15. And I traveled all over and worked and lived all over, mostly in Europe, but also traveled through the Middle East and parts of Asia and all over the United States. And most of the places that I went to, I was like, okay, I did it, you know, after a month or 3 months. Sometimes it took a year. And I'd be like, oh, I know where all the streets are. I know all the people that own all the businesses. I have, like, can't really go anywhere without running into someone that I have to say hello to. I've seen the same things many times. And then I feel ready to move again. But I don't have that experience in LA. Like, I'm constantly surprised all the time by Los Angeles. Even coming here today, I feel like I saw different things than the last time I came here. So it's always evolving and changing. And it's a lot less stressful than New York, which I think also has that, where it's constantly changing and evolving. But I find how condensed it is really stressful because I come from the desert and I'm used to like open landscapes and horizon lines and like sunsets and stuff. And LA has all of that and space to breathe and explore and try new things. So I still don't want to leave. I think I miss traveling and I'll be doing that a bit more, but I'll be coming back home to LA. Today, I still work with independent artists and I run a different art collective called Sovo Projects, and we do a quarterly print publication and we do a analog film crew that's shooting on 16 and Super 8 and 35 and whatever, only analog formats. And we have a writer's residency program, and we have artist residency programs. And we teach a series of workshops on alternative processing and experimental printing techniques for darkroom arts. And we do exhibitions, and that's the majority of my life. I also, since moving to LA, have become a commercial helicopter pilot. So I fly helicopters now, which was like always a dream of mine since I was really young. I got really frustrated with the arts at some point, and I went out with an art friend of mine, and she was like, well, what did you always want to be when you grow up? And what did you always want to do? And I told her I wanted to fly helicopters, and she was like, why don't you just do that then? And then I was like, you can't just be a helicopter pilot. Like, I thought you had to be in the military to do it or something. And she's like, yeah, you can just be a helicopter, you have to go to flight school. And so then the next day I went and signed up, and I did all my flight training here in Los Angeles. And now I recently bought an airplane, and I'm transitioning all of my licenses to fixed wing so that I can work commercially as a fixed wing airplane pilot. I love flying, and flying in LA is great because the weather's always good. So you can fly more frequently through the year than anywhere else in America, really. I am now also an art director for another magazine called Noema. So I've basically kind of repositioned myself in publishing, and I've started to learn about filmmaking a bit. I think that's inevitable for anyone that moves to Los Angeles. I avoided it for a very long time, but I think the film photography ended up leading to like cinematographers who ended up leading a door open to filmmaking, and so now we're here. And I bought a house here, and I have a lot of animals, like 7. There's always like other projects and collaborations all the time, but that's like my main stuff now. I think if you're coming to LA, there's a few things. One is that you will find what you're looking for here, but it might not be in the first place that you look. So LA's got a really wild landscape, and everything is so different everywhere you go, and you'll run into different types of people everywhere you go. And if something isn't fitting or feeling like the right place for you, you really don't have to leave LA. You just maybe have to move 1 or 2 cities over within LA County, and then it'll be like a completely different experience. I wouldn't give up on LA if you pick the wrong place to start. I would just try somewhere else. And I would say to give people a chance. There's a stereotype that LA people are like lazy and not intelligent, and that's not true at all. I've met some of the most intelligent and also successful people that I've ever met here in Los Angeles, and just because they make things look easy doesn't mean that they're not working their ass off all of the time. And my first creative director, when I was really young, he told me that the only difference between an amateur and a professional is that a professional doesn't complain and doesn't make it look hard, even if they're doing the same job. And I've met a lot of really incredible people in LA who make major achievements look like a piece of cake. But if you get to know them, you can learn a lot from them. Yeah, like sometimes if you see someone just like hanging out on the beach all day, it's probably because they own their company and they're doing work from their phone that day, but they're not like just a beach bum, you know? So I think there's a lot of substance in LA that LA doesn't get credit for. You know, I've met a lot of intellectual people here too. I think I've had more intellectually stimulating experiences, and I've learned more about life and the world in general here than anywhere else that I've lived. There are people from all different backgrounds and walks of life here who have wild, adventurous stories to share with you. And I think because of how wide of a range it is of situations and scenarios that bring people to Los Angeles in the first place, like you're going to encounter a lot of different perspectives and different value systems, and you can learn a lot from that. So I always want to hear about people's, you know, like what brought them here in the first place, and it's usually like really not what you would expect. And I like that a lot because like in Boston, where I came from Boston to LA, and in Boston it's like very I mean, it is very academic, and most people are there for academics, and that's also why I went there in the first place. And it's reading and writing and discussing and critiquing, and then doing that again repeatedly. I think that's like pretty much the main industry in Boston, and like what you do. And when you finish college, it's like the only next thing to do is like teach or get a PhD. So you just keep kind of staying in academia. And LA doesn't have anything like that. That's like the one thing that you can kind of expect from everybody. I don't think that there is one thing like that in Los Angeles. So yeah, I would maybe just give people a real chance and not write them off just because they're like smiling and having fun and hanging out at the beach. You know?
All right, great. That was perfect.
Yeah?
Thank you. How you feel?
Good.
Good. Woo, look at that. Painless.